Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. Hope everyone is feeling great. Hope you are feeling great. Hope you had a great weekend. We are back with another episode of Morning Inspiration with Friends. And I am your girl, Tanisha Shanae, Miss Inspiration. I'm an inspirational speaker, lifestyle strategist, and author. And today we're going to have a conversation that I did not think we were going to get to. I'm sorry for tuning in late. Ended up having some technical issues. I could not see my camera so that you can see me. But I also, because God literally gave me this message. So I had a whole nother message set up, and I'm glad I didn't prepare it for YouTube and stuff, because y'all would have seen something totally different from what God put in my heart this morning. So this morning, now, many of you know, I'm taking my walk with God very serious. Like, that's just hands down. I love the Lord. And the one thing I have realized in my journey is that a lot of people don't understand these things that we call ministry. And it continues to prove itself because we see people having these conversations, and it's like, all you can do is shake your head. Like, that's all I could do. All I could do is shake my head, because I just be like, where you get that from? So this morning, like 4 o'clock this morning, I came across a video clip of a famous pastor out in Atlanta. I will not name his name, because actually I don't even know his name. I just know him and I know his church. But I saw the clip that he did. And what he said wasn't wrong. Like, I'm not disputing anything he said. But the comments is what made me realize this topic, we need to have a conversation. Shout out to Suzanne. Suzanne is one of my YouTube followers. Suzanne actually started. Suzanne, I think this is you. You nudged this to when we was doing the 21-day challenge. You nudged this, Suzanne. So I hope you see this message. So today I just want to talk about the fivefold ministry. I know I have not talked about this in a long time. If you're on my Facebook channel, my Facebook page, you have probably, if you've been following me since like 2013, you have probably heard me talk about this and teach about this. Today, I just want to have a quick conversation, quick overview of what the fivefold ministry is. Because based off of those comments, it made me realize a lot of people don't know. Either they don't know that a fivefold ministry exists, okay? And I know people in church who don't know about the fivefold ministry. And then we also just don't have an understanding, right? Because so many people are not putting labels. They're not putting like the fivefold, the outside of being a pastor. They don't put a title of themselves in a fivefold ministry. You know, so many people just lack knowledge, and that's what it is. This is a lack of knowledge. So he was speaking about false prophets, and he was, talking about, you must discern based off of the fruit. You must discern if this person is actually called to be a prophet. And so, but people were commenting, they were listing people who were not even prophets. And that's what really got me to this point of like, we need to have this conversation about fivefold ministry, because the people in the comments were listing as false prophets. I'm like, them people are not prophets. They have never claimed to be a prophet. And so I had, I kept on commenting, does anyone know what the fivefold ministry is? Because you're listing people who are not. And they have never, at least from my knowledge, from what my research has done, because again, God had put me through a season where he had me researching and studying certain people. Good morning, Bola. So I know for a fact that some of the people that the people in the comments were bringing up were not people that have ever claimed to be a prophet. So you can't call them a false prophet if they have never claimed to be a prophet. Right? They know who they are, they know what role they play. So I said, you know what, God? Because again, I was ready to talk about something totally different. And he was like, no, I'm talking about this. So first things first, let's talk about what are the fivefold ministry. What are the different titles, the roles, right? This is all in Ephesians. This is going to be in Ephesians. What chapter? Ephesians. Jesus. I know it is. Hold on. I know I have it. We are in Ephesians chapter 4. Chapter 4, verse 11. Starting at verse 11, right? So, fivefold ministry. We have the apostles, right? We have our prophets. We have our teachers. Excuse me. We have our evangelists. And then we have our pastors. Okay? That's what the fivefold ministry is. Fivefold ministry, 5 different roles. Now, I understand a lot of people don't know all of that because most times we only hear about pastors, right? Preachers. That's all we really hear about. Prior to my work and my walk with God, I had not heard of all of the no, I've heard of evangelists because my aunt is an evangelist. So I did know of an evangelist. And I heard of the word prophet, but I always just heard it in regards to like Jesus. Like Jesus was one of the prophets. But I never really understood like it was a part of the fivefold. That was the very critical part. And so when I started to visit different churches, like when I say 2016 to 2018, sometimes I wonder if God wants me to tell that story. And if he does, we will get there one day. But God sent me through, so he sent me to some places, right? And he had me to observe some things. And I saw a lot. And the one thing that I did see consistently was that most churches did not have fivefold, right? I saw a lot of pastors who are also preachers. Pastors who are also prophets. I won't. I'm not putting any of my personal feelings in this, but I'm just telling you what I saw. So I saw mainly pastors who are also prophets. I've seen them. They might have an evangelist in their church. People who were teachers, they will only limit them to Sunday school teachers. And apostles, it was really like a touch and go, right? So that's what I observed. So that made me really start thinking like, well, if we're supposed to follow the principles to what God is teaching us and what God is, saying in the Bible, then we should see that mimic in the church. And I was not seeing that. So that made me go through my own personal deep dive into what all of this meant. And so I just want to give you. So first of all, each role is to exist so that it can equip the entire body. Every person, every role has an importance. So when I do see churches that has this structure and then you see these people in there, the only one that I traditionally do not see in, as I understand with God, it makes more sense to not see them in the church like on every Sunday, is typically a prophet, right? Because prophets typically go out, right? They're usually out. They're not usually in a home. So that's where I started to ask God, like, well, how do people be pastors and prophets? And again, some people, they choose these titles, right? I do believe, this is where my opinion comes in. I do believe that God can give anyone a prophetic message and a prophetic word. Does not mean that they are a prophet. And again, I've experienced that just from someone who was a worship leader. A worship leader prophesied to me back in 2016, but he was not a prophet and he never claimed to be a prophet. He even said, I don't know why God has given me this message, but God has given me this message, and he released the message, right? So some people are not prophets. They just had that one time God was like, I'm going to use you to be this vessel. And I want you to go and I want you to say this to this person or to this audience, those situations, right? So that's how I've experienced those types of things. And I think that might be where people are getting confused, because there could always be a time, even a teacher be in the middle of teaching, and then God will give them a prophetic message. It could be a prophetic warning, right? And so now people will say, oh, well, you think that you're a prophet? No, that person is just releasing a message that was given to them by the Holy Spirit, and they're being obedient. Again, unless they're claiming to be a prophet, that's where we have to stop. Stop just giving people extra titles. So I want to break down to you each of the ones, and this is the only thing that's going to be in this video. I'm gonna try to keep this focus to the 5, and I will add key points as we go through. Okay. So what is an apostle? An apostle is the visionary. They are the builders. They are the people that you normally hear and see them going from city to city, and they're planting and creating new churches. That's typically what apostles do. I know an apostle. I follow an apostle. He's based out of California. And I have watched him since, I think I connected with him and his wife like 2017. They already planted, I think, 3 churches. And I want to say one is in Africa, I think Kenya. I think they just opened up one in El Salvador, and it was another one. So that's what him and his wife do. They go around. They are the ones that are going to establish, right? They're establishing, and they're going to oversee the different churches and ministries that are being birthed under them, right? And this is all being guided by God. So God is going to give them these visions. God is going to tell them where, they're going to tell them who, and then they go out there and they're going to do their part. That's what apostles are supposed to do. Now, I've seen apostles who have never birthed anything outside of the church that they have created. Again, I don't dispute anyone's walk with God. I don't dispute anyone's assignments because I was not there. It was not a conference call, but I'm just giving you, these are the things that are supposed to happen when people have these certain titles, right? And I believe that apostles they're very important. Like, we need apostles. We need people to go out here and, create these churches, especially based off of the vision that God has given them. So I think back to like in New York. There in New York, prior to the pandemic, we had a lot of churches that were being birthed. Some of them you probably have seen. They were meeting in movie theaters. They were meeting in schools. Like, the apostles was just like, we're going to find any space so that we can all come together and gather. And then they would build those relationships. And then ultimately you see them in the church. And then you notice that apostle will go and now go to a new area. And now they're creating a new division of that church. And, in Brooklyn or in Queens. And now they may go out to Jersey. So that is something that we have to think about. Okay. So that's what your apostles are here for. Let's move on to prophets. The prophets, everybody want to be a prophet. I keep telling people, I stop asking for gifts. Stop asking for spiritual gifts that you don't understand. Okay, because if you really understood what being the mouthpiece of God is, that's what a prophet is. The prophet is the mouthpiece. Okay, the mouthpiece. They be getting some strays. Okay, it's not an easy church. It's not an easy journey at all. The mouthpiece is the person who's going to tell us what they hear from God, and then they're gonna release it. They're going to speak to, and they're supposed to speak to the heart of the people, of God's people. And I think that's what really triggers a lot of people, because when you are in front of a real prophet, okay, and that prophet is speaking to things that only you and God have spoken about, even things that you haven't even uttered, like verbally. Like, you ever just have like a private conversation with God, like you're talking to God, but there's no words, like you're not literally saying anything, and then you get in front of a prophet, and the prophet will call out that one thing, and you're like, wait, I didn't even talk to anyone. My mama don't know about this. My journal don't even know about this. How did you know? That's why I say, when you're dealing with a true prophet, that person is going to typically 9 times out of 10, they're confirming what God has already told you. It's not typically new stuff. And if it is new, it's because you have probably ignored the messages that God has been telling you. So he will sometimes send a prophet in front of you to kind of get your attention, because it's like, I keep telling you this, you're not listening. So now let me send one of my mouthpieces to tell you, so that you can now heighten that hearing, so that when you hear me say it, it will make sense. So the prophet is going to be that person that's going to go out there and is going to release warnings. So I do follow a few prophets online because they're constantly moving. There's one that I follow. She literally goes between New York and Florida, New York and Florida, New York, and it's like she just gets up and goes when God tells her and her husband, "Oh, you got to go back to New York." So she does a lot of her ministry online because of that. She does have physical spaces, but it literally could be she's planning to be in Florida on Friday, and she's staying there for the weekend. But then God will call her and be like, "No, we need you back in New York." And now she got to fly back to New York. So her ministry, the people will literally still go to the physical location in Florida, but they will have to now live stream because she's now up in New York. To me, that's how prophets operate, right? They're going to be the ones that's going to give you the directions, going to bring the connections, and it's supposed to really help to keep God's church in alignment with the purpose, right? So that is what a prophet is. So let's move on to an evangelist. Evangelist is the soul winner, right? They're going to go out here. They're going to win the souls. They're going to preach. They're going to preach. Like, so people like to use the word preaching, and I feel like we say preacher because we think of preaching. Any one of these can preach, right, and not be a pastor. Anyone can preach and not be a pastor. So that's what I'm saying. So an evangelist is going to have the heart for the lost, right? So they're going to go out there. They're supposed to go out there and find the lost souls, right? They're the ones that we typically see. When I used to grow up in New York, you would see them on the train, right? They're talking to God's children on their way to work, right? They don't care. You might be tired. You sitting on the subway in your seat trying to get a nap or try to eat that butter bagel. And that person is now going to come on and they're going to stir you up. So they're like similar to prophets, but prophets is typically just hearing downloads from the Lord. An evangelist might just be teaching a certain topic or just speaking to you and helping you to get correction so that you can get on the right path. So they're going to stir up that passion within you. They're going to, try to get you the salvation. A lot of times you will see them having outreach ministries. So they might be doing feeding the homeless, but while they're feeding the homeless, they're speaking to that person, trying to penetrate something in their soul, in their spirit. So that is what an evangelist is. The pastor is the shepherd. He's going to one that's going to oversee all of this, right? He's like the organizer. So once the apostle now says, we're overseeing, here's your church, you're the pastor, cool, do your thing. Now you are responsible for these members, right? You are the spiritual guidance. You're supposed to provide the emotional and even sometimes the physical needs of God's people. You're supposed to nurture them. You're supposed to coach them, guide them, protect them, and helping them to walk closely with God. Right? This is what we're supposed to do. You're supposed to create that community and that stability, right? So that's what a pastor is supposed to do. The one that gets a lot of slack and doesn't get as much credit is a teacher. And a lot of the people that were commenting in the comments were referring to a lot of teachers. And I was just like, again, because I studied a lot of those teachers, because I have the fivefold ministry of teacher. So it's very natural. I have a lot more understanding for teachers in fivefold ministry because God had me to study a lot of the very most popular, famous teachers. But the teachers are supposed to bring the clarity. Right? They're going to bring the clarity. They're going to bring the clarity. They're going to help you to understand those biblical principles. They're going to break those things down. They're going to give you life examples. Like, I feel like the teachers, and because I'm one of them, we are the people that have no problem telling you everything that we have gone through because we have realized that we were not following a lot of biblical principles. So a teacher is going to help you to have a sound understanding of the Bible. They're going to help you to have a better understanding in building that relationship, right? Asking questions, how to ask those questions. Understanding the complex truths, understanding the things that just doesn't make sense to the naked flesh eye. That is what the teacher is going to do. So when you have this understanding of the fivefold ministry, and you start thinking about them all as separate entities, you will start to understand everyone is not a prophet. If you really listen to what I have, everything that I broke down, how can you, it's like learn the fivefold. And again, this is in Ephesians 4, verse 11. And you will see how they all differ. And when I challenge you to go further deeper with God and say, all right, God, give me more understanding of who are teachers, who are not, who are just pastors, who are evangelists. And so this way you can start to see. So it's verse 11 through 13, right? So Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and the teachers to equip his people for works of service so that the body of Christ may be built up. So we need all five of these to build us up as a body of Christ. But this is the problem that we have. Everybody wants to be a prophet, or everybody wants to be a pastor. But no one wants to go out there, and they don't want to evangelize. They don't want to be a teacher. They don't want to be the apostle creating new, because they want to be the head hunter at the church that they built, and everyone knows their name. It's like Cheers. But if you are called to be an apostle, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go out and create new, right? Build new, oversee new. You're supposed to be the overseer for those new sanctuaries that are going to come, those new communities, right? And so in verse 13, until we all reach unity in the faith and the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fulfillment of Christ. And I feel like that's where a lot of us are not. We're not there. We don't have an understanding. A lot of people do not have the knowledge. So many people, I guarantee you this would be the first time that they ever heard of fivefold ministry. Guarantee you. And I understand it because it has happened. It has happened. I definitely have seen it. I've seen it for myself, literally. And it's just like, wait, we need this information. It needs to make sense to us. And I want to help people to have that level of understanding and knowledge, because that's what's going to help us to grow as the body. If everybody, and you probably have, if you've been watching these videos since I really became consistent, the one thing that I keep saying to people is that you have to realize that we all have a part in this body. Right now, we have too many people trying to be one part, right? Everybody wants to be a prophet because it looks fun. It looks cool. God be telling people secrets. That stuff is not cool, right? Especially when you don't know what to do with it. Especially when you are not mature enough to handle these things. So many people I have seen create spiritual warfare amongst themselves because they do these things, because they're being immature, because they just want to be out here and I want to be the prophet. I want to be the master prophet. You want to be whatever you want. And God is like, that's not why I gave you that gift. It's to help build up. It's to help bring correction. And everybody doesn't want to bring correction. They just want to sit here and just want to pretty much use that as a way to gossip and then use that as a way to manipulate. And that's where I'm going to stop. Okay? So I hope this teaching was good. I hope this gave you a little bit of clarity of understanding of the fivefold ministry. If this message has given you any insight, right, I want you to go ahead. I want you to share this with somebody, right? Someone who might be on their journey, trying to understand God, trying to figure out, how do I get to this point of understanding and not classifying everyone immediately as one thing and being misinformed. I want to have the knowledge and the understanding. Send them this message. Like this message, leave a comment if you have any questions. Again, I just wanted to leave this super, super simple. Just the introduction of the fivefold ministry. And now, what did I say last week? Every time that you leave here, I want you to have something to go and sit quiet and get clarity from God. That's it. I've done my job. I showed up, right? As a teacher of the fivefold ministry, I have done my part. Now it's time for you to go and get this further insight so you will have more understanding and knowledge from God. And God will start sending you to those places to get confirmation and things of that nature. That's just how I believe. That's just how God has trained me. This is my relationship with God, and this is how it helped me to build. So I want to encourage you to do the same thing. So at the end of the day, as always, if you want to connect with me, please do so. Make sure that you go to my link tree. You can see about my books, my community, my courses, my blog, the other links to my other social medias, whichever one that you are not following me on, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You will find me all right there, and you can follow me on those different platforms. So I am your girl, Tanisha Shanae, Miss Inspiration. Have a good day. Be well, be blessed. I love you.